Aquarius, do the people around you actually understand how much you've changed? Or are they still treating you based on the older version of yourself? The version that existed months or even years ago? Because right now, you are entering a very specific stage of personal growth. A stage where your mindset is shifting, your reactions are different, and your priorities are becoming clearer. But here's the truth. Most people have no idea who you are about to become. They see surface changes, but they don't see the deeper shift. They notice small improvements in your choices, but not the strength behind those choices. They may sense you pulling back, becoming quieter or more selective, but they don't understand why it's happening. They only see fragments of your progress, a few new habits, a stronger opinion here and there, or a sudden boundary you didn't set before. But they have not witnessed the full transformation that is building inside you. This transformation is emotional, mental, spiritual, and behavioral. It is happening in layers, not all at once. And because most of this shift is happening internally, people around you simply cannot understand how much you are evolving. Before we continue, type this in the comments to anchor the energy of this message. I am becoming the upgraded version of myself. This video will help you clearly understand why your evolution is happening at this exact moment, what started this shift in you, and how this new growth is going to change your relationships, your direction in life, your boundaries, your confidence, and even the way you see yourself. This is your moment of clarity, Aquarius. Your transformation didn't begin during a happy moment or after receiving praise. It didn't start when someone supported you or told you how capable you were. It began in a much harder place, in the moments when you felt underestimated, dismissed, or pushed aside by people who should have known your worth. Aquarius, your growth started when you noticed a pattern of being treated as if your thoughts didn't matter, or your feelings weren't taken seriously, or your potential was not recognized. There came a very specific moment when you said to yourself, "People see me, but they don't actually know me." That realization changed something inside you. It created a mental shift that was quiet but powerful. You began to rethink who deserved access to you. You stopped sharing every detail of your life so freely. You became more selective about who you trusted. And you no longer looked for validation from people who never valued you properly in the first place. This was the true beginning of your upgrade. Inside you, a new awareness formed, an understanding that your peace, your ideas, and your time were too valuable to waste. You started moving from a place of maturity instead of emotion. You became more focused on what made sense for your growth and less concerned with how people viewed you. The older version of you reacted quickly, gave too much, and assumed others had good intentions. The new version of you is guided by clarity, self-respect, and careful observation. This shift, this internal decision to change how you respond, who you allow near you, and what you accept, became the foundation of the person you are becoming today. Your withdrawal was not isolation. It wasn't you giving up on people, and it wasn't you becoming antisocial. It was a strategic and necessary step in your personal growth. This phase began when you realized that staying emotionally available to everyone was draining you. You saw how much energy you were giving out compared to what you were receiving. You noticed how certain people only came to you when they needed something, but disappeared when you needed support. So you naturally shifted. You became more observant. Instead of reacting instantly to every situation, you started watching how people behaved, how consistent they were, and whether their actions matched their words. You analyzed people instead of rushing to excuse them. You paid attention to red flags instead of ignoring them. You allowed yourself to process things before responding. You stopped forcing connections that no longer felt genuine. You allowed friendships that weren't growing to fade without fighting to save them. You no longer tried to convince people of your value. You simply stepped back and let their behavior reveal their intentions. You started protecting your mental space. You became mindful about who you allowed near your emotions. You stopped giving easy access to people who didn't handle your heart with care. You made your peace and your stability a priority. This shift didn't happen because you became cold, difficult, or distant. It happened because staying in environments where you were undervalued was no longer acceptable to you. Your spirit refused to remain where it felt drained, ignored, or taken advantage of. You pulled back because you were preparing for the next version of yourself, a version that understands boundaries, chooses wisely, and values peace over chaos. This stage was essential, Aquarius. It was the beginning of you learning how to protect your energy and invest in your emotional health. One major reason people can't predict who you're becoming is simple. You're no longer blind to the behavior patterns you used to overlook. There was a time when you gave people the benefit of the doubt very quickly. You assumed everyone had good intentions. You tried to understand people, even when their behavior didn't make sense. But now, you recognize things you didn't notice before. You can tell when someone is inconsistent, when their behavior changes depending on what they want or who is watching. You no longer fall for empty promises or sudden waves of attention that disappear just as fast as they arrived. You notice when someone's words don't match their actions. If they say one thing but repeatedly behave differently, you catch it immediately. You no longer make excuses for people who refuse to show reliability. You can identify emotional manipulation much faster. You recognize when someone tries to guilt trip you, twist situations, or shift blame to avoid responsibility. You don't get pulled into emotional games the way you might have in the past. You see when someone benefits from your kindness without giving back. You notice when people are comfortable taking, but never offering support in return. You no longer carry the full weight of relationships that should be mutual. And you clearly see when someone only shows up when they need something from you. The pattern is obvious now, and you no longer confuse convenience with loyalty. In the past, you might have let these things slide because you believed people would eventually correct themselves. You wanted to think the best of everyone, but now you see these patterns instantly. You understand what they mean, and you adjust your boundaries accordingly. Your awareness is rising, your tolerance is decreasing, your standards are strengthening. This shift alone already makes you a completely different person than you were. It marks the beginning of your transformation into someone who protects their peace and refuses to settle for relationships that drain them. You're experiencing an internal identity upgrade, Aquarius. This change is not about becoming a different person on the outside. It's not about acting differently to impress anyone. It's about shifting the way you think, the way you respond, and the way you manage your life. This identity shift is happening quietly, but you can feel it clearly. You're becoming more emotionally disciplined. You no longer let every situation trigger you. You take time to think before reacting. You choose logic over impulse. You no longer waste energy on arguments or situations that don't lead anywhere. You're becoming more protective of your direction. You know what you want and what you don't want. You're more careful about the choices you make, because you understand that every decision affects your future. You don't allow distractions to pull you off track the way they once did. You're becoming more selective about who gets access to you. You no longer give your time, trust, or emotional availability to people who show you they can't handle it. You've learned that not everyone deserves to be close to you just because they want to be. You're becoming more intentional with your future. Every step you take now has a purpose. You're thinking ahead. You're planning more. You're setting goals that match your growth. You're no longer living day by day without direction. You're building a path. You're becoming more focused on your personal development. You're paying attention to your emotional needs, your mental health, and your spiritual growth. You're choosing habits, environments, and connections that support your evolution. Most importantly, you no longer attach your worth to other people's validation. You don't need constant approval to feel valuable. You don't depend on compliments to feel confident. You understand your worth internally. You no longer let fear dictate your decisions. You're not scared of change the way you used to be. You're not held back by the worry of what if. You're learning to trust your judgment and step into new stages of life with courage. And you no longer allow disrespect to continue without consequence. You speak up. You set boundaries. You walk away when necessary. You refuse to tolerate behavior that drains you or disrespects your growth. This identity shift is one of the biggest signs of your transformation. A clear indication that you are stepping into a stronger, wiser, and more grounded version of yourself. There are people in your life who still believe they know exactly who you are. But the truth is, they only know the older version of you. The version that existed when you were less aware, less confident, and less focused on your own growth. These individuals are confused now because you're not behaving the way you used to. They expected you to stay predictable, but you're not. They expected you to stay emotionally generous toward everyone, but you no longer do that. They are noticing the shift, even if they don't understand it. You don't respond the same way anymore. You're not quick to explain yourself. You're not trying to defend your choices. You're not rushing to fix every situation. You don't react emotionally anymore. You've learned to control your responses. You've learned to observe before speaking. You've learned that not every comment or action deserves your energy. You don't give unlimited access to people. Not everyone gets to be close to you. Not everyone gets to hear your personal thoughts or feelings. Your openness now depends on trust and consistency. You don't entertain nonsense. You're not interested in drama, childish behavior, or conversations that go nowhere. You invest your time only in things that align with your growth. And you definitely don't ignore red flags anymore. If someone shows you patterns that don't match your values, you notice immediately. You adjust your boundaries, and you protect your emotional space. These changes have shocked people who underestimated you. They never believed you could detach so confidently. They misread your calm nature as weakness. They assumed your patience meant you couldn't see their behavior clearly. What they never understood is this: your silence was growth. Your patience was maturity. Your distance was healing. You weren't being weak, you were evolving. And now that you've stepped into a stronger, more aware version of yourself, your evolution is exposing their misperception. They are realizing that the person they underestimated is no longer someone they can control, influence, or take advantage of. You've outgrown their expectations, and they're finally noticing. Your thinking has changed in a way that you cannot undo. Once your mind expanded, it stayed expanded. This shift is one of the strongest signs of your transformation because it affects every part of your life: your choices, your relationships, your goals, and even the way you respond to pressure. You've learned to pause and think before you react. You no longer rush into decisions based on emotion or fear. Instead, you analyze situations logically and view them from a higher perspective. This helps you avoid unnecessary mistakes and protects you from being pulled into unhealthy situations. You now ask deeper questions, questions you never used to consider before. You ask, does this person add value to my life? You pay attention to whether a person brings peace, support, honesty, and consistency. If they don't, you begin to pull back without guilt. You ask, is this environment healthy for me? You pay attention to the atmosphere around you, whether it motivates you or drains you, whether it helps you grow or keeps you stuck. You ask, is this relationship aligned with my growth? You look at whether a relationship helps you become better or holds you back, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. You no longer stay just because of history or loyalty. You ask, does this opportunity respect my boundaries? You evaluate whether the things you say yes to are actually in line with your values and self-respect. You no longer accept situations that require you to shrink or compromise your worth. This mental upgrade is making you someone who thinks long-term instead of reacting in the moment. You're planning ahead. You're prioritizing your future. You're focusing on decisions that build stability, peace, and progress. This new mindset is shaping your future in real and practical ways. It is clearing out people, habits, and environments that no longer match the direction you're going. And it is helping you create space for new opportunities and healthy relationships. This shift in your thinking is one of the biggest reasons why the world has no idea who you're about to become. You're developing a form of confidence that doesn't need to be shown off. It's not loud, it's not dramatic. It's a calm, steady confidence that comes from real inner growth, and it's becoming more visible in the way you speak, the way you make decisions, and the way you carry yourself. This confidence comes from knowing your worth. You finally understand that you bring value wherever you go. You no longer feel the need to lower your standards to fit into places that don't respect you. It comes from understanding your strengths. You recognize what you're good at, what you bring to a relationship or opportunity, and what makes you unique. You're no longer waiting for someone else to point it out. It comes from recognizing your emotional progress. You can handle situations now that would have overwhelmed you before. You respond differently. You manage stress better. You process emotions more maturely. It comes from setting firm boundaries. You're not afraid anymore to say no, to step back, or to distance yourself when something feels unhealthy. You no longer compromise your peace just to keep a connection alive. It comes from healing past wounds. You are no longer operating from pain or insecurity. You've addressed the things that once controlled your reactions, and now you move forward with a clearer mind. It comes from trusting your intuition. You rely on your inner guidance. You listen to the quiet signals that tell you when something is right or wrong. You no longer second-guess what you feel. And it comes from being clear about what you will and will not tolerate. You know your limits. You know what behavior is unacceptable. You no longer allow anyone to push those limits without consequence. This level of confidence is surprising to people who only knew the older version of you. They were used to the version of you who avoided conflict, who always said yes, who gave too many chances, or who stayed silent to keep the peace. They expected you to remain predictable. They expected you to remain available whenever they needed you. They expected you to remain soft in moments where real strength was required. But now, you've shifted. You've grown stronger internally, and people can feel it, even if they can't explain it. Your confidence is transforming the way others see you, and it's preparing you for the next stage of your becoming. You're currently in a preparation stage, Aquarius, even if it doesn't completely feel that way yet. This phase is shaping you quietly, and it's happening in different areas of your life at the same time. You may not notice every detail of it, but the signs are clear. This preparation is happening through reduced distractions. You don't tolerate noise or chaos the way you used to. Certain conversations, environments, and people no longer pull your attention. Your mind is searching for clarity, not clutter. It's happening through increased self-awareness. You're paying attention to your reactions, your thoughts, and the things that affect your mood. You understand yourself better now, and that awareness helps you make smarter choices. It's happening through improved discipline. You may notice yourself becoming more consistent with your habits or more intentional with your routines. You're learning to stay committed to what's important and let go of what isn't. It's happening through emotional stability. You're not as easily overwhelmed. You're not jumping to conclusions. Your emotions are becoming more balanced, and you can navigate situations without losing control. It's happening through clearer intuition. Your inner voice is louder. You sense who is genuine and who isn't. You can tell when something is right for you and when something feels off. It's happening through stronger boundaries. You're no longer afraid to say no. You're no longer letting people cross lines without consequences. You protect your time and energy more than before. And it's happening through a higher level of spiritual awareness. You're more connected to your inner guidance. You're more thoughtful, more intentional, and more aligned with what feels true to your spirit. During this preparation phase, life is removing certain people and situations because they are not compatible with the next version of you. It's not rejection, it's alignment. These changes are meant to protect your future, not harm your present. You are being aligned with opportunities, environments, and individuals who match your maturity and your new direction. This is why your life may feel quieter right now. This is why you may feel more selective about who you spend time with and what you give your attention to. It's not a coincidence. It's part of the preparation. This quiet, intentional stage is shaping you into the person you're becoming. Let's talk clearly about who you're becoming, Aquarius, without exaggeration and without any dramatic wording. This is the practical, realistic version of your future self, shaped by the work you've been doing internally. You are becoming a person who makes decisions from self-respect. You no longer make choices just to please others or to avoid conflict. You choose what honors your values, your time, and your emotional well-being. You're becoming someone who no longer negotiates their value. You don't try to convince people to treat you better. You don't accept less than you deserve. You understand exactly what you bring to the table. You're becoming someone who stands firm emotionally. You react with stability instead of panic. You stay grounded even when situations get stressful. Your emotions no longer control your entire day. You're becoming someone who listens to their intuition before external voices. You trust your inner guidance. You rely on your own understanding before seeking approval or opinions from others. You follow what feels right to you, not what others expect. You're becoming someone who protects their peace. You limit access to people who cause stress or confusion. You choose calm environments and positive influences. You guard your energy like it's a valuable resource because it is. You're becoming someone who chooses growth over comfort. You're willing to step outside your familiar routines. You're ready to take risks if they help you evolve. You no longer stay in the same place just because it feels safe. You're becoming someone who doesn't return to old patterns or old relationships. You've learned your lessons. You know what belongs in your past. You're no longer tempted to go back to situations that slowed your progress. You're becoming someone who moves with intention. Every choice has purpose. Every step is considered. You no longer act without thinking about where that action will lead you. And you're becoming someone who leads their life with confidence. You trust your decisions. You walk with clarity. You're no longer controlled by fear, doubt, or uncertainty. You're not just improving, you're leveling up in a way that will shock the people who thought they understood your limits. This is the version of you they never expected to see, the version that was growing quietly behind the scenes. Here's the truth, Aquarius. Most people judge you based only on what they've seen from you in the past. They make assumptions based on old versions of you, versions that no longer exist. Because of that, they completely miss the transformation that has been happening inside you. They don't see your internal growth. They don't see the private battles you've overcome that shaped your strength. They don't see the late nights where you had to rebuild your confidence. They don't see the emotional work you've quietly done to heal parts of yourself that were wounded. They don't see the lessons you've learned, lessons that changed your perspective and elevated the way you handle life. They don't see the personal promises you made to yourself about what you will no longer accept. They don't see the growth that happened in silence when nobody was watching and nobody was helping. People around you don't know how much stronger your mind is now. You think differently and you don't break under pressure the way you once did. How much wiser your spirit is. Your intuition is sharper, your awareness is deeper, and you see things you used to miss. How much clearer your decisions have become. You make choices based on clarity, not confusion, not fear, and not emotional chaos. How much more selective you are. You don't give your time, your energy, or your emotions to just anyone anymore. How resilient you've become through experience. You've survived things that changed you from the inside out, and that resilience is now one of your strongest qualities. How different your life is going to look moving forward. Your priorities have shifted, your vision is clearer, and your standards are higher than ever before. This is why they have no idea who you are about to become. Because everything that has empowered you happened internally, not publicly. They didn't witness it, so they can't understand it. But soon the results will reveal the truth. You won't have to explain anything. Your actions, your progress, and your new direction will speak louder than words. Aquarius, you are stepping into a version of yourself that is more grounded, more mature, and more self-aware than at any other point in your life. This change didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen by accident. It is the result of everything you have learned, everything you have overcome, and everything you have chosen to walk away from. People who underestimated you will not recognize this new version of you. They expected you to stay quiet, predictable, or unsure of yourself. Now they're seeing someone who thinks differently, chooses differently, and carries themselves with a level of strength they never expected. People who misjudged you will not understand how you elevated so quickly. They will look at your growth and assume it came from nowhere, but you know it came from months or even years of internal work. You built this version of yourself through reflection, healing, and wiser decision-making. People who doubted you will not know how to approach you anymore. They were comfortable when you were unsure of yourself, when you allowed certain behaviors, when you tolerated things that didn't match your value. But now your presence has changed, your standards have changed, your tolerance has changed, your transformation is real, your direction is changing, your energy is improving, your boundaries are stronger, your confidence is rising in a quiet, steady, undeniable way. If this message spoke to you, comment below. My transformation is unfolding now. And if you want more deep, spiritually grounded Aquarius messages like this, make sure you subscribe, because your journey is far from over. You're becoming someone powerful, and the world is about to see it.